Dear Miss Haru, I hope Toto and Muta get far enough in the proceedings to actually read this to you. You may have noticed by now, but it takes a firm hand to get them to behave well together. You are doubtlessly wondering why I am sending an offer of marriage to you, having never personally spoken to you before now. Perhaps this would help explain. You haven't been paranoid for years, as your mother and friends have been insisting, every time you knew you were being watched by someone you couldn't see. That was me. I wish I could tell you why I took such a personal interest in your daily doings, but I can't. I will shortly explain this. Up until yesterday, I wasn't quite sure why I took such pleasure in watching you go about your life. I hope you have noticed that I have been respecting the times when you needed privacy. But I realized why yesterday when you stood up to that rogue of a landlord. I could see it in your eyes that you wouldn't have hesitated if the landlord had insisted on having his way with you. I thought it was very classy of you to refuse to give up the last treasure you had, even if your methods were unorthodox. I know this may seem strange, but when I saw you cut yourself to prove your point, I took it a little hard. That's an understatement, Muta commented, apparently listening anyway. He nearly went rabid. He wouldn't let us see what was getting underneath his fur either. Fur? Haru asked, raising an eyebrow at the huge feline. Toto waved one wing. He'll probably mention the fur soon enough. Haru held the letter to him again, taking a break to also sit down on the log. Lord Yanni, who isn't worthy of being called a lord, was very lucky that he decided to let you be, because I would have intervened if he had insisted, and he might not have survived the intervention. While he was leaving and making more threats, I realized that I was in love with you. I'm trying hard not to make you scared of me, since you are probably intimidated enough without adding pressure. As soon as I realized my own feelings, and made sure the rogue would leave you long enough for me to take action, I went to my king to ask for permission to try courting you, since this kind of thing has never happened before, and he likes to know what's going on in his own kingdom. I would be lying if I told you that no one had a problem with what I was planning, and more than a few tried to talk me out of it. The only reason I am able to send you this letter would be if I agreed to a few conditions. One is that I can't tell you how you gain my attention, or even give hints until you figure it out. Another is you can never see my face, or we'd never be allowed to contact each other again. It would be dishonest to go any further into this, unless you have an idea of what I look like. My body is somewhere between that of a human and a cat. I have fingers and feet, but I also have a tail and whiskers. I hope that won't put you off, but I would understand if it did. The last condition is that there must be someone watching when I'm with you during the time of courtship. I wouldn't dream of asking you to marry me while you still perceive me to be a stranger, and it would give us time to think things over. Of course, these conditions are only valid if you agree to them.
We are both aware that all I really have to do is order you to come, and you would have to obey. But I truly can't think of a faster way to earn your personal scorn. Part of the reason I am so attracted to you is because you're not afraid to make decisions for yourself, and greatly resent anyone that tries to do that to you without good reason. I will not force you to come, or accept my proposal, but I am truly hoping that you will give me a chance to love you. Like you said, all whom love you are dead, and there is nothing binding you to life. I hope I can change that. You are a wonderful woman, Miss Haru. I've known that for years. And it would be a terrible waste if you did end up having to kill yourself in order to keep your integrity. It's true my lifespan may be significantly longer than yours, and you can't work magic like I can, but I would like nothing better than to spend the time I can with you. I pray that you will give my offer serious consideration. Love, Baron Humbert von Giggingen. Haru blinked a few times and looked at the squiggles again. How could such thin marks like those carry a man's heart? That's his real name? Toto slipped his spectacles back inside his feathers. Yeah, but he prefers Baron. Muta snorted. Fits him better than Humbert, anyway. Haru rolled the paper up and faced the trail, leaning over so she could rest her head in one hand. Of course, who else would have the ability to watch over her like that for years, but the true ruler of the land? At least he wanted her the honorable way. Oh, what she would give to know what had happened that made him look at her twice. He was probably behind the disappearing bread as well, since her parents always searched too well for any mortal to have escaped them. She had to give Baron points for the full disclosure. If anything, he had given her several reasons to say no, but was still asking her to say yes, when he could have just ordered her. "Where'd you cut yourself?" Muta asked, curious. Haru traced the scab on her neck with one finger, getting both animals to stare at her. "Baron's getting turned on by a suicidal girl?" Haru shook her head. "I'm only suicidal if that's the last option. I have to protect my honor. It's all I have left, and I won't let anyone steal it from me." Toto stared as the girl turned away, lost in thought. Then the crow smiled. No wonder Baron likes the girl's spirit. "Okay, use your head, Haru. What he's suggesting is crazy, but he sounds completely rational. He's a half-cat, you'll never see his face, there's no telling how old he physically is, and... he's sincerely in love with you. Why else would he accept all those silly rules for someone like me? He's watching right now. I can feel it. What's going through his head?" "Does he purr?" Both servants stared at her. "Eh?" they asked. She laughed softly at them. "He's a half-cat, right? Can he purr?" They looked at each other. "Why would you want to know, Chickie?" She shrugged. "I don't know. But does he?" Toto thought carefully. "I don't remember ever hearing him do it. I don't think he ever got happy enough to purr." "I heard it once, before he made you," Muta told the crow. "It was at the winter solstice ball, about 2 centuries ago, and Louise was hitting on him pretty hard. Then a servant accidentally dumped a platter full of full wine goblets on her new dress. But since Baron's such a gentleman, he waited until we came home to start purring." He looked at Haru. He doesn't usually take pleasure from things like that, but she's been giving him grief for at least a millennium. She's a half-cat too, and she thinks that means that she and Baron are supposed to get together. But he can't stand her at all. She's really hoping that you'll turn him down." Haru laughed, shaking her head. "Louise must be the mist lady." "Great! I haven't voiced either way, and I already have an enemy." It was probably just the beginning. She knew nobles sometimes thought of people in her rank as animals or worse. And there were certain to be fairies with the same attitude towards humans in general. But this Baron, he sounded like such a sweetheart, and was taking a lot of unnecessary pains on her behalf. She looked at the path, wondering where it would lead her. Life was unpleasant, no matter where one was. Her parents made sure she knew that. She fingered the paper in her hand, Baron's words reverberating through her head. Half-cat or not, at least he was a gentleman, through and through. And he had to have a bucket load of patience to deal with those two on a regular basis. Behind her eyes, she could see the humble blossom she had woken up next to. A modest token of the Mountain Lord's affection? She sighed, and slipped a letter into her bag. Considering what he wrote in the letter, it would be bad manners to not personally tell him my decision. I do get to meet him, right? The cat and crow grinned widely at her while they nodded, thinking the same thing for once. She is so toast.